Hello folks, this is Johnny again, and today let's look at the Overloud Tapedesk. I was looking for a console emulation plugin, and then I stumbled across this one, which doesn't just emulate a console coloring and saturation, but actually this plugin emulates a whole analog recording setup. So the signal goes into the console, and here you can also turn on the mic preamp simulation and whatnot. Then it goes into the Tapedesk for recording, and you also can turn this one on and off. And then it's being played back into the console, so it can then be mixed. And here you can also turn the console on or off. For example, if you just want to have the tape saturation, that's pretty nifty, or you can turn off the tape saturation if you just want to have the console coloring. So I think this plugin makes a lot of sense. Most other plugin developers give you everything in separate plugins. You have to buy the mic preamps simulation and the console simulation and the tape simulation all separately, and that can cost a lot. So having everything in one plugin for a very fair price, I think makes a lot of sense. So I just pulled the trigger and bought this one. Let's talk about some of the features first of all. So we have 3 console simulations here. I think the S4000 is an SSL, I think the N80 is a Neve, and I'm not sure about the T88, but don't quote me on any of this. I'm not very savvy when it comes to consoles. Go figure, as the kind of home producer that I am. On the actual tape console, we also have everything that we need. The input leveling, which is also linked to the output leveling. And we have 3 tape speeds that do have quite an effect on the sound in this plugin. Then the bias going either normal or over for a bit stronger saturation. And also World of Warcraft flutter. That was a stupid joke. Sorry. And then in the front here, we also have the input trim and the output trim for the console, and also mic preamp, as I said. And the tolerance button introduces a little bit of variation for each instance of this plugin that you load up on all the consoles, and the way they color and saturate. Because apparently that's how it is in real life. Not each channel is exactly the same. So this also makes sense. And now let's get into listening to this plugin. So here I have the mix down of the stock plugins only mix of the song Stampede that I did some while ago. Because it's done only with stock plugins, this whole mix sounds very without wanting to be condescending, it has a bit more of a flatter, sterile vibe to it. Not a lot of character, I kind of want to say. So there's no console emulation whatsoever on this whole mix, which gives us a good basis to try out this plugin. So first thing you will notice, it has a very low CPU usage. Let's just listen to the mix without it, and then I'll turn it on, and you just look at the CPU meter down here. So as you can see, the CPU meter barely does anything, and also the plugin latency down here stays at 0. It just surprises me how well Overloud can code their plugins that they have such a low CPU usage. That's crazy, but also very good, because that means you will not get into any kind of trouble. You can load this onto as many tracks as you want. It will work. So let's go through the consoles now. Let's listen what they sound like. Okay, so I kind of want to say the S4000 gives us a nice mid-range girthiness and a smooth top end. I personally like this one the most. The N80 kind of does the opposite. It has a very gritty, edgy upper mid-range, and the lower mid-range feels a bit more scooped. And then the T88 kind of sounds a bit more transparent. It doesn't have as much of a coloring going on. It has more like an overall push to it. So let's stick with the S4000 for now. And let's try out the mic preamp. Let's see what that button does. Okay, it's very subtle what it's doing, but what I'm hearing is it adds a bit more low-end punch and richness, especially on the kick drum, you can notice it. And now the tape saturation. I like this one. You can hear how it adds to that mid-range girth, and you just feel that saturation going on. And also the top range is a little bit rolled off even at 30 rounds per second, which makes it sound very smooth and prevents from anything getting too harsh. And now let's change the tape speed so you can also see what that's doing. Okay, so the lower you go, the more muffled you could say it gets. The top end rolled off gets a bit stronger, but on the other side, the low end response gets stronger as well. So depending on what I'm doing, I'd stick between the 15 and the 30 rounds per second. If I want to have a bit dirtier, a bit grittier mix, a bit more rockish, then I go for 15, a bit more modern. If I want to keep it brighter and exciting, I stick with the 30. What's really cool is for electric guitars, especially when you're working with amp simulation, try out the 7.5. It will really take out the fizziness of the distortion and makes your guitars sound that much more realistic. And now for the wow flutter. You can really hear it's actually doing something, so you could use that for some crazy effects if you wanted to. Personally, I like to keep it at this at the first mark here across the board. I also used this plugin for the latest album Revive that's coming out now, and I pretty much kept it at that for all the channels. Then let's check out how hard we can actually drive this tape. You can get into some real distortion with this one. So bottom line, I think this is a really good plugin, a really good expansion to your plugin arsenal for all your analog gear simulations. If you're looking for console emulation and tape saturation and whatnot, then I can highly recommend this plugin. It's really, really great. And what I also like about it, you can actually hear it doing something. I watched a lot of videos about console emulation plugins and tape saturation plugins, and all of them seem very subtle to my ears. Perhaps my ears are just not developed enough yet, but I don't want to dish out too much money for something that barely does anything. And this one obviously does something, and I really enjoy working with it. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, comment, like, whatever else you want to do. And then I shall see you next time.